bill regarding public works projects. Okay, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Lamb?
Aye.
Vice Chair Dorman?
Aye.
Representative Weber?
No.
Representative Bratton? Burns?
No.
Fraker?
Aye.
Gosen?
Aye.
Hurst?
Aye.
Kelly? Lynch?
Aye.
Smith? Walker?
Aye. By your vote of 7-2, you have moved due pass House Bill 285. I now move due pass on House Bill 195, also concerning prevailing wages. Madam Secretary, would you please call roll?
Chairman Lamb?
Aye.
Vice Chair Dorman?
Aye.
Representative Weber?
No.
Representatives Bratton? Burns?
No.
Fraker?
Aye.
Gosen?
Aye.
Hurst?
Aye.
Kelly? Lynch?
Aye.
Smith? Walker?
Aye. By your vote of 7-2, you have moved due pass on House Bill 195. I now move due pass on House Bill 257, which is the School Construction Act, again dealing with prevailing wage. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Lamb?
Aye.
Vice Chair Dorman?
Aye.
Representative Weber?
No.
Representatives Bratton? Burns?
No.
Fraker?
Aye.
Gosen?
Aye.
Hurst?
Aye.
Kelly? Lynch? Smith? Walker?
Aye. By your vote of 7-2, you have moved due pass on on House Bill 257. Transportation's next. We'll now open the hearing on House Bill 44. Representative Weber, go ahead when you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having visions of every tough question I've asked members of the committee while they've testified now. First off, I'm Representative Weber from Columbia, Missouri, the 46th District. I'd like to thank the chairman for taking the time to have this hearing today. I appreciate it, and thank you, members of the committee. The subject of House Bill 44 is gender pay equality, or the pay gap. About a month ago, a study from the Women's Foundation, released in conjunction with the Public Policy Institute of the University of Missouri, demonstrated that full-time working women in Missouri make approximately 71% of what full-time working men in the state of Missouri make. This really shouldn't come as any surprise because numerous studies, both here in the state of Missouri and nationally, have documented over time that women consistently make less for performing the same jobs that men do. This disparity has been demonstrated across all levels of education, all levels of income, and all job fields. A previous study also from the American Association of University Women studied men and women a year after college graduation. It compared folks from the same major who were working in the exact same job field 1 year from the date of college graduation. What it found was that women a year after graduation were making 7% less than their male counterparts with the same training in the same job field. It also found that what would happen is that gap actually widened over time. So the problem actually grew worse. What this means is that the longer that women work, the more unfairly they're paid. And I think that's a pretty stunning fact, a pretty stunning statistic. The reasons that I care about this issue, I think, are the same reasons that's important. On its face, it's simply unfair to ask people to do the same work and pay them less money. It's just wrong, and that should be enough by itself, I think, for this committee and this body to try to address the problem. In addition, though, it's a family issue. Women that earn less money, bring home less money to their families. It's a children's issue. It's an issue for our entire economy. So it's an important issue that we address for multiple reasons. What I'm proposing today is House Bill 44. House Bill 44 requires the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to establish best practice guidelines for dealing with the issue of gender pay inequity here in the state of Missouri. It doesn't establish mandates, it's not additional regulations. It's my attempt at finding a bipartisan solution to this problem. It operates under the assumption that businesses in Missouri don't think to themselves, how can we pay differently based on gender? It operates under the assumption that people want to do the right thing, and that providing tools necessary, we can make a lot of positive change to address this issue. I'll give you two brief examples of tools that the Department of Labor may suggest, although they're clearly empowered by this legislation to suggest whatever they find necessary. Two things that studies have shown have worked in reducing the pay gap. First, having one person in human resources that is designated to examine bonuses that are given within a company based on gender and to ensure that bonuses are given out fairly. If you just say we're going to have a policy of equal pay, that doesn't seem to make a difference. When you specifically assign one person and say, you in human resources, this is your responsibility, that makes an actual difference in making sure that bonuses are awarded fairly within the company. Second issue that has been demonstrated to help in reducing the pay gap is increased transparency in salaries. Here in the United States, we have a sort of a cultural norm against discussing how much money we make, and actually reduced transparency leads to a wider pay gap. I'll give you a brief example from actually a friend of mine, somebody that I grew up with in Columbia. After I filed this bill, she came up to me and thanked me for filing the bill, and she told me her story. And I actually wanted her to come testify today, but she didn't feel comfortable doing that, partly because she still works for the current employer. Basically what happened is she works at the University of Missouri. She has got a master's degree. She's been working in her job for about 4 years. She found out that a man that was hired who had less education than her, who had less experience in their job field than her, and started out making more money than she did. And she thought that was unfair. And she went to her boss with the documented evidence. She made her case, and her boss said, you know what, I agree, that is unfair, and increased her pay. There's a lot of different things that you can take away from that story. One is that it's difficult to talk about, right? While she's completely right and had a happy ending, she didn't want to come here and talk about it today because she didn't want to make waves. Second, she showed tremendous courage in being willing to say something. Most people, or certainly a lot of people, wouldn't have had that courage. Third, her boss recognized the problem and agreed that something should be done. But it's also important to note that without the transparency, the University of Missouri publishes salaries. Without that transparency, she could have worked for years and never known that she was making less money. If, say that they were given a 2% raise off a different base, that gap would have continued to grow wider. And if she hadn't addressed that issue now, say she worked at the University of Missouri for 18 years like my mother has, and she got a percent-based raise every year. 18 years from now, the gap from what she was making and what her coworker making would be enormous. And if it wasn't for that transparency, that component, this issue wouldn't have been addressed. I think this is a good bipartisan solution. I think this is a real problem here in the state of Missouri, but I think it's a problem that there are clear guidelines on how we can address. And so with that, that's my proposal, House Bill 44. I do have some people lined up to testify, and I'd be happy to take any questions from the committee.
Questions of the representative? Representative Gosen.
To inquire, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Representative. I understand the premise of this. I'm just going to more or less talk to you, throw some thoughts out when I think about this. I mean, I've got a wife who makes more money than me and 3 daughters who I look out for, and I would never want this to happen to them. I was working with a constituent on an issue like this a couple of years ago, and we went to some of the largest employers in my district, one being the school district, one being being a large insurance company, and we talked to them, and they put not just my constituent but myself at ease that the pay, in the school district was not based on gender in any way, and this insurance company provided statistics showing their pay based on men and women. And so, I wasn't really able to find a lot of it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but with some of the bigger employers, but when I was working with this constituent on it, we started talking about, was the problem maybe more of a job issue? Like this person, I look at some of these counties, and I'm thinking, one particular county, I won't name it, but school teachers is a big employer in that county. And union guys, and these particular union guys are doing very dangerous union work. And so that county's there's gonna be a big disparity there. You've got the teachers. I've always said, when I went to work at Anheuser-Busch as a Teamster, and I started out at $24.75 an hour cleaning equipment, and I thought, boy, I wish our school teachers all started out at $24.75 an hour. And so I wonder if there's not more of an issue when you look at county totals of different occupations paying differently. Maybe our school teachers that are often dominated by the women are at a lower pay level than, say, I'm not throwing the representative here under the bus. There's some jobs, dangerous jobs, or intensely physical jobs that maybe pay a little more that the men tend to gravitate to. That's one thought. And then even the thought, like I have my oldest daughter, her and her son came out with the same degree, and they took different jobs based on what they really wanted out of their life. My daughter, she wanted to be at home. She wanted to be able to start dinner. Matter of fact, she's going to discontinue working here in April and be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, I'm going to be a grandpa, but it was her choice, and I always wonder if these studies take into account that there are a lot of women that choose maybe to take the job that gives them that flexibility to be home by 4, or just some thoughts. And
Sure.
And I'm sure you thought about
Yeah,
that.
I have. I would say a couple things. First, when you aggregate it out across the entire state, it tends to take into account discrepancies in terms of danger and stuff like that. I would argue that teachers are a low-paying profession in large part because historically it's been a female-dominated field that we've paid less over time. I think there's a lot of different issues that explain that wage disparity, and so I'm not going to say that we can completely solve all of it with House Bill 44, but I think from the issues that you brought up, House Bill 44 would only make improvements. I don't think it wouldn't do anything wrong. The other component is, to me, the fact that it gets worse over time if you move in the same job fields, right? So the examples that you gave of comparing different jobs, when you look at people in the exact same job, the pay gap exists. When you look at over time, the pay gap gets worse. So that would seem to indicate that there is a problem beyond just simply people wanting different things out of life.
Representative Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Permission to inquire.
Go ahead.
I would like to say something too, Mr. Chairman. I know I have a tendency to talk too much. If I get close to time, you just tap that camera and let me know. I'm not trying to do it on purpose, but sometimes I get a little carried away. I would like to say a couple of things before I inquire. I was on a board of education. I think they'll answer Representative's question. When teachers start out, they start out low. There's several reasons for that. When they do that, it's because they are not tenured, and it's kind of a trial period for 5 years. But when teachers hit the top of the salary schedule, particularly in areas where we live, that could be $75,000, $80,000 a year, which is probably more than your average union person makes on a 40-hour week. So your bill more or less is talking about same job should be same pay, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if I'm a pipe fitter and there's a lady pipe fitter, Senator Walsh was a pipe coverer, dangerous, hard work, paid full journeyman wages. If I'm on that job, she's making the same amount of money as me according to contract. Correct? Or if you're a truck driver and Anheuser-Busch employee, those things. What you're talking about is disparity where a woman would be doing the exact same job and being paid less. As you were saying, 71%, gentleman makes 100%.
Correct.
Okay. In the first place, I feel embarrassed and shocked that we should even be having this conversation. That women in this country would make less money than men. And I was just talking to someone on the elevator. You know, I remember when the Korean War was going on. So I'm old. But I remember when that whole thing, women's lib, you come a long way, baby. And I remember thinking at that point, my mother's gonna have to take a step backward because my mom used to run our house like a drill instructor. And my wife also did child daycare in our home for 40 years. And when these moms would show up to get their children, good moms, they would be absolutely so stressed, they'd be out of breath, worried about their job, worried about if their child is sick, how do I take this day off and not be penalized? I want to be with my child, but they're forced to work. So I think it's the least we could do in this country, since it's talked about in our Constitution, equal, we are equal. And why women aren't paid the same, I mean, every woman in this room, why they're not paid the same as men is beyond me. And I'm glad my wife's not here, because she'd be pointing her finger at me right now, and that's absolutely right. So I appreciate you bringing this bill. And could you tell me how this would be policed? Would a lady have to bring a case, or would it be something that would be watched and there'd be someone overseeing this to make sure someone didn't be put in jeopardy of being maybe harassed after it was done and those kind of things?
No, so there's remedies in the law right now for that. What my bill is trying to do is to say that there are problems, maybe not that are intentional, but that are there in society that lead to this pay gap. And if we can empower people with tools to address that, we can take a bite out of that 29%, and we can reduce that 29%. This isn't about additional lawsuits. There's no lawsuits that would result from this bill. That's a separate situation. It's a separate solution. This is about trying to come up with solutions that empower Missourians to address a problem that I think Missourians, if you poll and ask people across the board, they want to address this problem. I don't think the majority of people think that this is right. Giving them tools to solve that, and that's what this is about.
So in your field, being a lawyer, when a lady becomes a lawyer, they're gonna make the same amount of money as a male lawyer, generally?
I would have to look at the breakdown of that. I would say that the evidence seems to suggest that across the board they would probably make less.
What would be the reason for that?
Well,
I mean, working at a law firm or working for themselves, they would not be paid, say, so much per hour like the hourly rate of an attorney, simply because they're a woman?
I want to be careful because this study does break things down by occupational fields, and I haven't looked at the occupational field of lawyers, so I don't want to assert that. I will say that the evidence seems to suggest that across the board, women with the same educational levels are compensated less for the same work than men. So the evidence seems to suggest that yes, that female lawyers would make less than male lawyers.
Well, Representative, I appreciate the fact you're bringing this bill. I'm going to support it wholeheartedly, and Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Representative Fraker.
To inquire, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I just want to get a clarification. This is kind of a follow-up to Representative Goshen's question, but this report that you've given us, or that's been provided by the Women's Foundation, says median individual income by gender. It doesn't say by gender and job classification. So can you clarify that this is all the occupations lumped together, and because it's an average? So
that one is correct. There's a plethora of studies on this. Sure. Some of them take different approaches. Okay. That one is looking at the median. It says the median working full-time working women make 71 cents for every dollar that the median full-time working man does. There's additional ones that break it down by occupation, and that's the ones that show that the gap expands over time. Like the American Association of University Women would be another one that you could look at.
Okay, so this one for my county, for example, is 66%. The total of Missouri is 70. But do you know what the average is by job load classification by chance?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I was just curious what that was, because I think that's the one that your bill's really trying to focus on more, right? Because obviously,
I would say that's
you know, this includes concrete workers, which are predominantly male, versus house cleaners.
Right, this is, my bill is predominantly focused on people that work in the same even company.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Lynch,
To inquire, please.
go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Just have a couple of questions on maybe how this would work if it came to pass. I know that departments kind of have a willingness to create some rules outside the boundaries of promulgation process once in a while, and we have some concerns in our assembly that they do that.
Right.
Would this open the door for the Department of Labor to create a rule mandating gender pay quality standards on public and private employers?
No. No.
Okay. And one other question. The bill doesn't require any legislative approval of the gender pay quality guidelines once they're created. Do you see that the legislature will have some part to play in the final process of that?
The way that my bill operates is it directs the Department of Labor to establish those guidelines. No, the legislature does not even approve those guidelines. I think the legislature would certainly be in favor of any legislation that we passed ourselves that established those guidelines. But my thinking was that we have a Department of Labor, that there are experts over there whose job it is to deal with workforce issues, and so they're in the best position to establish those guidelines. But I would be in favor of us doing it as well.
So it would come back for the legislature for approval of that? The
Correct.
department will take care of it.
Correct.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Representative Dorman,
Thank you, Representative. So I think we've kind of covered the waterfront, that don't have it broken down by education level, service level, that sort of thing.
Oh, wait, there's absolutely studies that do.
You don't have it here today, though.
I don't know if the one that I gave you has that. There's certainly multiple ones that do. I've actually, so I've read 2 or 3 different studies even this morning, so I'm not sure which one says what, but yeah, I think it's beyond established as a fact at education level, that discrepancy exists across education levels.
So your testimony would be then that full professors at MU females receive less than males, or?
So I think the committee is caught up in trying to compare.
Well, we're just trying to, I mean, you're
Right.
giving us this broad, 2 categories,
Right.
male, female. What else is in that mix? I think that's the point of the questions.
Right, and I think when you tease out everything else, you still find that just that alone is enough across the board. That does not mean that if you take any 2 random people, there's going to be a disparity. What it means is that if you take the sum of everyone, that there is a disparity. So you may be able to take 2 professors at the University of Missouri, and just because there is a disparity or there's not a disparity doesn't prove or disprove the larger issue of there being a problem across the state of Missouri.
Well, do you think, I mean, you just take a whole group and start throwing them in one place or the other. I mean, you could obviously overlook some things. I think that's the point of these questions, but we can move on. Other factors that deal into this. I mean, if we're gonna bring it up, let's talk about everything that feeds into this problem. I mean, we would agree, I think, that those with higher education levels tend to make more money, correct?
Yes, and
Overall.
and the study showed that the pay gap is not as wide. Among
Mhm.
people of higher education, there's a wider gap among people of lower education, but that the gap still does persist among people of higher education. The education levels may reduce the size of the gap, but it doesn't eliminate it.
And there may be other factors that do eliminate it. Maybe we're overlooking. I think that's kind of the point of where I'm going here.
I don't think that that's true. I think
Nowhere in the state of Missouri can the gender gap be eliminated. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying,
No how, no way?
no. You said that there are other factors that might eliminate it. I don't think that currently is the case across the board.
Well, then you're saying that it doesn't exist.
No.
There's never a way to overcome. Currently, there's no way to overcome the gender pay gap.
No, I'm saying that when you take into account different factors such as education, different factors such as wanting different things out of life, you still find, even accounting for all those things, that there's a pay disparity between men and women.
I mean, is that what you'd be looking for with this bill? The way I read it, it says, why does gender pay inequality happen? So you'd be looking for all the factors that feed into that.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you're looking for, correct? And then how do we achieve the pay equality? So you'd be looking for factors that would be helpful in eliminating that.
Correct.
Okay, good. So my final portion of the questions then. What would this do? I mean, it looks like to me that we're directing the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to make a study and recommendations. Is that correct?
To actually establish guidelines. So let me,
What would these guidelines do?
right, and so the two examples I gave are suggestions for what those guidelines might look like. The Department of Labor can obviously go further and provide additional guidelines, but those are just two things that have, other states have worked on that have been helpful. I think, like I said, I'm operating under the assumption that Missourians want to get rid of gender pay inequity, that businesses want to reduce the size of that gap, and that by providing them information and tools that they can use to tackle that gap, that 29% will be reduced. I would also say there seems to be some resistance to the idea that this pay gap exists, or if it does exist, why it exists. I disagree with that.
Isn't that a legitimate question? If it exists, then why does it exist?
I agree that's a legitimate question. I would disagree with, I think, maybe some of the questions that have been phrased, but let's say that we do pass House Bill 44, and let's say we do come across these guidelines, we do recommend these guidelines. The only thing that can happen is positive, right? Nothing negative can happen. There's no way that if you're correct, and what I'm assuming you're asserting that the other factors explain this, it's not going to cause any problems.
Just asking questions.
Right, you're just asking questions, right? But it's not going to cause any problems. However, if I'm correct in my assertion that the gender pay gap does exist and is a problem, we can see some real positive change. So from that perspective, passing this bill, there's no way that we lose. All thing that can happen is that we can win.
Let's say we pass the bill and we do what's proposed here, which
Right.
is make a study and establish some guidelines, which is kind of a recommendation unless.
If you want to establish additional litigation, we can do that. But I know the committee generally is not a fan of that, so I was trying to find something in this committee.
Well, okay, okay. My first question is, who would these guidelines apply to? And if they're guidelines, I mean, we're here to make a law, and usually law requires enforcement, so.
Is your argument that you would like to build a?
I'm not arguing, I'm asking.
What's your question that you?
This is an inquiry, isn't
You
it?
think we should have additional regulation? I mean, we could, my thought was that this committee has shown that it doesn't support regulations.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're doing. I mean, if you want to make a study, couldn't the governor do that? Couldn't the governor just not direct the department to do that?
The studies have been done. This is the Department of Labor actively pushing forth best practices.
Best practice guidelines. So who would that, let me slow down.
Right.
Who would that apply to?
It would be available for any business in the state of Missouri to choose to adopt.
And if they choose not to adopt it,
Then the status quo continues.
okay. So there is no enforcement mechanism. It's not a regulation per se.
It's not a regulation per se.
We're directing the department to make a study and give recommendations.
To establish guidelines, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't think it goes far enough, I'm happy to take it further.
I'd like to ask all the witnesses testifying today, or those wishing to go on record for just anyone who wishes to speak on the bill needs to fill out a witness form, please, and leave it on the table. I'd like to now hear from those in support of the bill. Wendy Doyle with the Women's Foundation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Wendy Doyle, and I'm the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation. Since 1991, the foundation has been investing in equity and opportunity for women of all ages in Missouri. I am here to testify in support of House Bill 44 because the Women's Foundation wants to help drive economic development and support for Missouri women and their families. Not only do women represent 51% of our state's population, but 65% of Missouri women vote, which is a larger percentage than men and is even higher than the national average for both men and women. At the foundation, research is a large component of our work, and the data and facts, we utilize them to accurately tell the story. In 2014, we conducted a qualitative and quantitative study in partnership with University of Missouri's Truman School of Public Policy. Our study focused on the status of women in Missouri. In addition to analysis, we spent a lot of time listening to low-income and mid to upper-income women across the state. And we did focus groups to hear firsthand what the issues are that women are facing. We even focus grouped men, and what we learned is that they have concerns for their wives' ability to generate income to household budgets and for their daughters' need to become economically self-sufficient. To give you a snapshot, our research revealed that positively, Missouri women make up 48% of the paid labor force, slightly higher than the national rate of 47%. Another positive, Missouri women are less likely to be unemployed than are men. All that being said, in Missouri, women who work full-time earn 29% less than men for the same work. Said another way, Missouri women make 71 cents to the dollar that men make. With few exceptions, this income gap persists across racial and ethnic groups, age, educational level, and occupation. As a reference point, the national average is 78 cents to the dollar. Over 2/3 of Missouri's counties, mostly in the northwest and southeast regions of the state, have income ratios below the state average. The widest gap is in Carroll County, where women have incomes that are just 51% of male incomes. You may be asking how the gender pay gap is related to driving economic development. Research has shown that Missouri women who are employed full-time lose a combined total of $8 billion due to this wage gap. This means that if we can work together to close the gap, on average, a working woman in Missouri would have enough money for approximately 73 more weeks of food for her family, which is more than a year's worth, 8 more months of mortgage and utilities payments, nearly 13 more months of rent, or 2,934 additional gallons of gas. There is so much more that we can do to develop best practices to further economic development for Missouri and to improve the lives of women and their families. We believe that House Bill 44 takes the right approach to get to the why there is a gender pay gap, so that together, men and women, we can develop lasting solutions and get the results that we all desire. Economically self-sufficient women will lead Missouri's next chapter of economic growth. And by supporting this bill, you will be investing in a stronger economy for all Missourians. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today.
Thank you. Questions for the witness? Representative Gosen?
Jim Bartlett.
Go ahead.
What industries is there, and again, some of the other representatives have asked, like this particular chart is very difficult for me to pull meaningful information from it because it's just standard. It takes nothing else into account. What are the industries where there seems to be more of a problem?
It varies, and it is occupation by occupation. So
But what's one of the worst? I mean, what would be an industry where we would find big disparities among two people come in as a particular job?
It's a case-by-case basis, and this is why this research study is important to actually get to the why of this. What we are seeing
Well, like
is...
the representative said, with attorneys, he doesn't perceive, or with higher education, he doesn't perceive the problem. I'm trying to find...
I didn't say that.
No, not as much as some other jobs. I thought you said higher education. I'm just looking for like industries where, where it's a bigger problem.
Sure.
Like as school teachers, I guess, because everything's pretty standardized with the contracts, or even with a union contract where everything's laid out. I know I made exactly the same as all the ladies that I was hired with. We all had exactly everything the same. Where is this a bigger problem?
As Representative Weber mentioned too, it also, we see most of it in the hourly wage. So the hourly employee That entry-level position is where we're seeing the biggest disparity. So again, it's a case-by-case of industry, but that entry-level position is where we are seeing the biggest pay gap. And so those would impact the low-income families. Those are
Like mall
the single-
type jobs?
Mall type, retail, for example, is one industry.
That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there those here in opposition of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ray McCarty, Associated Industries in Missouri, and here a little reluctantly because as I listened to the testimony, I'm not really sure what the bill is really trying to accomplish, and that's why we are in opposition to it. If it's just a study, the department can do that today. They don't need a bill to tell them to do a study, and that's the reason for our concern with the bill. What is it really trying to do? It's setting up guidelines that can be imposed or can be the subject of a lawsuit. That's what concerns us. And if it's just to bring attention to the matter, we've done that by filing the bill, so we wouldn't need to advance it. So certainly bringing light to the issue, no problem. Filing a report, the department can do that without the bill. So we don't know the reason for the bill, and we would urge you not to pass it. Yes, that answers your questions.
Representative Smith?
Quiet.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you said something that was interesting to me. I've been here since about 5th year, and you said they can do it already, no need to pass the bill. This has happened probably 5 times last week where there was something that a department could or could not do that was, and maybe that's the part, they can or cannot do it. This says it's gonna be done, and it puts firm footing on it. We all know there's an issue. I know you know there's an issue. That's why you said you were kind of reluctant kind of coming up here. But I think this right here, it can't hurt anything. And if there's nothing wrong, why not, have it put in the statute so it has to happen? What would be the concern from the industry to